put your phone or device aside and immerse yourself in this audio story. Perfect for listening on the move, while relaxing, or for bedtime listening. We release new stories daily, so make sure to like and subscribe to not miss out. This story is based on true events. The $1.5 billion shadow. February 21st, 2025. A Friday morning in Dubai. While most of the world slept, someone, or something, was executing the most sophisticated digital heist in cryptocurrency history. $1.5 billion vanished from Bybit, one of the world's largest crypto exchanges, in a theft so technically perfect, so impossibly clean, that even now, months later, investigators whisper about it with a mixture of horror and grudging admiration. This is the story of how the fortress that promised to be unbreakable was penetrated in minutes, how billions disappeared into digital darkness, and how the hidden vulnerabilities in our new financial future were exposed in the most brutal way possible. What you're about to hear isn't just a business crime documentary. It's a dark business story that reveals the terrifying fragility beneath cryptocurrency's promises of security, and the almost invisible line between technological innovation and catastrophic collapse. Ben Zhou stood at the pinnacle of the crypto empire he'd built from nothing. By early 2025, Bybit had grown into a $15 billion behemoth, processing over $10 billion in daily trading volume, trusted by millions of users across 160 countries. Zhou, a Chinese-born entrepreneur who'd learned his craft in the brutal trenches of forex trading, had created something extraordinary. A platform that combined the raw power of leverage trading with infrastructure that seemed, to everyone watching, utterly impenetrable. The company's cold wallets, those offline digital vaults where the real money lived, were protected by multiple layers of security that made Fort Knox look vulnerable. Multi-signature protocols required multiple executives to approve any transaction. Air-gapped systems ensured the wallets never touched the internet. Military-grade encryption wrapped everything in mathematical impossibility, or so they believed. But in the shadowy world of cryptocurrency, where billions flow through invisible networks at the speed of light, where wealth exists only as strings of code, every fortress has a weakness. The question isn't whether the walls can be breached. The question is whether anyone knows where to strike. The attack began at 3:47 a.m. Dubai time. Security logs would later show the first unusual transaction, a routine-looking transfer request from one of Bybit's Ethereum cold wallets. Nothing about it triggered immediate alarms. The digital signatures were perfect. The authorization protocols checked out. Every security layer, those multiple signature requirements, those air-gapped systems, those impossible-to-bypass authentication mechanisms, somehow approved the transaction. This wasn't supposed to be possible. This was the equivalent of walking into a bank vault while guards watched, bypassing every lock and laser grid, and having the vault itself hand you the money with a smile. What happened next unfolded with mechanical precision. Over the next 18 minutes, a cascade of transactions drained Bybit's Ethereum reserves in carefully orchestrated movements. Not random, not chaotic, surgical. Each transfer stayed just below the threshold that would trigger additional security reviews. Each movement followed a pattern that looked almost legitimate to automated systems. The attackers weren't just skilled. They understood Bybit's security architecture better than most of the company's own engineers. They knew exactly where to cut, exactly how deep, exactly how to make the bleeding look like normal circulation until it was far too late to apply the tourniquet. By 4:05 a.m., $1.5 billion in Ethereum had vanished into a labyrinth of wallet addresses that began splitting and mixing the stolen funds across dozens of blockchain networks. The money moved through privacy protocols, cross-chain bridges, decentralized exchanges. A digital shell game played at computer speed across a global network that was designed from its very conception to be ungovernable and untraceable. This wasn't just a heist. It was a demonstration of crypto's original sin, the same decentralization that promised freedom from traditional finance made recovering stolen funds nearly impossible. The first humans learned about the breach at 6:23 a.m. when Bybit's security team noticed the depleted wallet during a routine morning check. 2 hours and 36 minutes after the theft began. An eternity in digital time. The money was already scattered across hundreds of addresses, already mixing with legitimate transactions, already becoming mathematically impossible to untangle from the vast ocean of blockchain activity. Benjo's empire was hemorrhaging, and the world was about to find out. But here's where this dark business story takes its first truly chilling turn, one that reveals something far more unsettling than a simple theft. The attackers didn't just steal $1.5 billion. They proved they could have taken everything. Internal investigations would later reveal that the same vulnerability that allowed access to the Ethereum wallet could have been exploited across Bybit's entire cold storage infrastructure. Bitcoin wallets holding billions more, stablecoin reserves, every major cryptocurrency the exchange held. The attackers had the keys to the kingdom, yet they took only a fraction of what was available. Why? Two theories emerged, each more disturbing than the last. Theory 1. The theft was a proof of concept, a demonstration to Bybit and the entire crypto industry that their security was theater, that the walls everyone trusted were made of paper. Taking everything would crash the markets and make the stolen funds worthless. Taking just enough showed restraint, sophistication, and a deep understanding of market dynamics. This was someone who thought like an institutional trader, not a simple thief. Theory 2 was darker. Several cybersecurity experts who analyzed the attack pattern suggested the theft might be a state-sponsored operation, a demonstration of capability against a platform that had grown too large, too influential, too independent of traditional financial oversight. North Korea's Lazarus Group had already stolen over $3 billion in crypto to fund their regime. Russia's intelligence services had shown increasing interest in cryptocurrency as a sanctions evasion tool. China, where Joe had been born, had banned cryptocurrency entirely, but maintained sophisticated cyber capabilities. The precision, the technical sophistication, the apparent insider knowledge. This had the fingerprints of something far beyond ordinary cybercrime. But the most terrifying possibility was simpler. The attackers were showing the industry that they could come back anytime they wanted, that this was just the opening move in a longer game. Benjo faced a choice that would define his legacy. Go public immediately, admit the catastrophic security failure, face potential regulatory obliteration and user panic, or try to contain the damage quietly, recover what could be recovered, and hope the attackers didn't strike again before the vulnerability could be patched. At 9:47 a.m. Dubai time, Joe made his decision. In a terse statement posted to Twitter and Bybit's official channels, he confirmed what blockchain analysts were already discovering. Bybit has experienced a security incident affecting our ETH cold wallet. User funds remain safe. Our reserves exceed the shortfall. The crypto markets went into freefall. Ethereum dropped 7% in minutes. Bitcoin followed, shedding $4,000 in value as traders panicked. Other exchanges saw massive withdrawal requests as users, suddenly aware of their vulnerability, rushed to move funds to personal wallets. The great illusion of crypto security, that major exchanges were somehow safer than banks, that blockchain technology made theft impossible, shattered in real time across global markets. Joe's claim that user funds remained safe was technically true, but strategically incomplete. Bybit held approximately $2.8 billion in reserves against total user deposits, enough to cover the $1.5 billion theft with margin to spare. But this was the company's safety buffer, its insurance against market volatility, its foundation for future growth. In a single night, More than half of that buffer had vanished. The company was still solvent, still operational, but it was now walking a tightrope without a net. Behind closed doors, the real battle was just beginning. Joe assembled a war room of cybersecurity specialists, blockchain forensics experts, and lawyers specializing in digital asset recovery. Their mission: track the stolen funds through the blockchain's public ledger and identify potential recovery points before the money disappeared forever into the crypto underworld. The investigation revealed the attackers' sophistication in horrifying detail. The stolen Ethereum had been immediately split across 42 initial wallet addresses. From there, each wallet subdivided again, creating a fractal tree of transactions that branched exponentially with each passing hour. Some funds moved through Tornado Cash, a privacy protocol that mixed transactions to make them untraceable. Other portions converted to Monero, a privacy-focused cryptocurrency designed to be mathematically impossible to track. Still more flowed through decentralized exchanges, where transactions happened without any central authority that could be subpoenaed or pressured. The attackers were using the blockchain's own architecture against the investigators. Every transaction was public and verifiable, yet the sheer volume and complexity made meaningful pursuit nearly impossible. It was like trying to follow a single drop of water in an ocean. You could see it enter. You could even watch where it went. But recovering it? Mathematically, philosophically, practically impossible. Yet Joe's team found something. A pattern in the chaos. Several of the downstream wallets that received portions of the stolen funds had been previously flagged in connection with a 2023 hack of a smaller exchange. Same movement patterns, same mixing protocols, same final destinations, wallets that eventually funneled funds to exchanges in jurisdictions with minimal regulatory oversight. Russia, North Korea, several sanctioned entities. This wasn't random crime. This was organized, institutional-grade digital warfare. Joe reached out to global law enforcement, Interpol, the FBI's cybercrime division, regulatory authorities in every major jurisdiction where Bybit operated. But here's the brutal truth about cryptocurrency crime that makes this such a dark business story. The same features that make crypto attractive to legitimate users make it nearly impossible for authorities to help. Blockchain transactions are irreversible. There's no bank to call, no credit card company to reverse charges, no central authority with the power to freeze accounts. The decentralization that crypto evangelists celebrate as liberation from traditional finance becomes a prison when things go wrong. The FBI could investigate, Interpol could coordinate, but actually recovering the funds, that would require the attackers to make mistakes they clearly weren't making. Then came the revelation that changed everything, the one that exposed just how deep this conspiracy truly reached. 3 weeks after the attack, a whistleblower from within Bybit's technical team leaked internal communications to crypto news outlet CoinDesk. The documents revealed that Bybit's security team had identified the exact vulnerability that was exploited, a flaw in their multi-signature wallet implementation, 7 months before the attack occurred. 7 months. The vulnerability was documented in an internal security audit completed in July 2024. The audit specifically warned that a sophisticated attacker with knowledge of Bybit's signature protocol could potentially craft transactions that would bypass verification layers. The recommended fix: a complete overhaul of the cold wallet infrastructure, estimated cost $4.2 million, estimated implementation time 3 months. The project was delayed, then postponed, then quietly shelved. Why? Because Bybit was in the middle of aggressive expansion. New markets, new products, a rumored IPO preparation that would value the company at over $20 billion. A 3-month shutdown of cold wallet operations for infrastructure upgrades would have been expensive, operationally complex, and potentially damaging to the growth narrative Joe was selling to potential investors. This is where the dark business thriller reveals its true nature. This wasn't just a story about sophisticated hackers defeating advanced security. This was a story about calculated risk, about corporate priorities, about the decision to gamble with user funds because fixing the problem was inconvenient. Internal emails showed executives debating the trade-offs. The probability of exploitation is low, one VP of engineering wrote. Our monitoring systems would detect any attack within minutes. Another email from the CFO calculated that the cost of the security upgrade exceeded the statistical expected loss from a potential breach based on historical attack frequencies. They did the math. They decided the risk was acceptable. They were catastrophically wrong. When the leak went public, the narrative shifted entirely. This wasn't a tale of unstoppable hackers defeating impenetrable security. It was a story of negligence, of corporate greed, prioritizing growth over safety, of known vulnerabilities ignored because fixing them was expensive and inconvenient. The crypto community, already shaken by the theft itself, turned on Joe with visceral anger. Class action lawsuits were filed within days. Regulatory investigations opened in Singapore, the UK, and the United States. Several jurisdictions began proceedings to revoke Bybit's operating licenses. The company's valuation, once projected at $20 billion for an IPO, collapsed to less than half that as investors fled. But Joe had one final card to play, one that would reveal the true power dynamics in the crypto world. On March 15, 2025, Bybit announced it had secured emergency financing of $1 billion from Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange. The terms were punishing, a combination of debt and equity that effectively gave Binance significant control over Bybit's future operations. But it was enough to stabilize the platform, restore user confidence, and keep the lights on. The announcement raised immediate questions. Why would Binance, Bybit's largest competitor, bail out a wounded rival? The official explanation was about preserving confidence in the broader crypto ecosystem. If Bybit collapsed, the resulting panic could damage all exchanges. But analysts saw something darker. Binance's CEO, Changpeng Zhao, had recently completed his own federal prison sentence in the United States for money laundering violations. The company was under intense regulatory pressure globally. By rescuing Bybit, Binance positioned itself as a responsible industry leader, a good actor in a space desperately seeking legitimacy. The $1 billion investment wasn't charity. It was reputation laundering on a massive scale. And for Joe, accepting Binance's terms meant survival, but it also meant surrendering the independence he'd fought for years to maintain. Bybit would continue operating, but increasingly as a Binance subsidiary, rather than a true competitor. The empire he'd built was now controlled by the very rival he'd spent years trying to surpass. As for the stolen funds, by June 2025, blockchain forensics teams had tracked approximately $340 million of the original $1.5 billion to wallets on exchanges that cooperated with law enforcement. Another $180 million was frozen in transit through various intermediary services. But nearly $1 billion had successfully disappeared into privacy protocols, mixing services, and non-cooperative jurisdictions where it would likely never be recovered. The attackers were never identified. No arrests were made. The investigation continues, but as each month passes, the trail grows colder, the mixed funds become more diluted, and the probability of recovery approaches zero. What this dark business story ultimately reveals isn't just the vulnerability of cryptocurrency systems. It's the fundamental tension at the heart of the entire industry. Crypto promised to replace trust in institutions with trust in mathematics. But the Bybit hack exposed that those mathematical systems are still built, maintained, and protected by fallible humans making economic calculations about acceptable risk. The security wasn't defeated by superior mathematics. It was defeated by corporate cost-benefit analysis, by executives who knew about the vulnerability and decided the expense of fixing it exceeded the probability-weighted cost of potential exploitation, by a growth-at-all-costs mentality that prioritized expansion over security. This is the hidden machinery behind crypto wealth, not blockchain innovation or cryptographic brilliance, but the same ruthless calculation that drives every business scandal, every corporate crime, every instance where profit is weighed against safety and profit wins. For Joe, the aftermath has been a slow descent from crypto emperor to diminished operator of someone else's platform. He remains CEO of Bybit, but the real power has shifted to Binance's boardroom. His reputation, once that of a visionary who understood markets better than anyone, is now forever marked by the biggest crypto theft in history. A theft that could have been prevented if he'd simply authorized the security fixes his own team had recommended. The users who trusted Bybit with their funds technically didn't lose money. The exchange's reserves covered the shortfall, but they learned a dark lesson about the nature of crypto custody. Their billions existed in digital wallets protected not by unbreakable mathematics, but by corporate security decisions made in conference rooms by executives calculating return on investment. And somewhere, the attackers who pulled off this heist are sitting on nearly $1 billion in cryptocurrency that, thanks to the very decentralization that makes crypto attractive, may never be recovered. They proved that the fortress could be breached. They demonstrated that crypto's greatest strength, resistance to central authority, is also its fatal weakness when things go wrong. The Bybit hack wasn't the death of cryptocurrency. Markets recovered. Trading volumes returned to normal. The industry adapted, as it always does, with new security protocols, new promises, new assurances that this time, the walls are truly unbreakable. But on quiet nights, when Ben Joe reviews the security logs from February 21st, 2025, he knows the truth that this dark business story has revealed. In the shadow world, where billions of dollars exist only as code, where fortunes are built on promises of cryptographic security, where empires rise and fall at the speed of light, the greatest vulnerability isn't technological. It's human. And the fortress that seemed unbreakable fell not because the attackers were brilliant, though they were, but because the defenders chose profit over protection, growth over security, and convinced themselves that the risk was acceptable, right up until the moment $1.5 billion vanished into digital darkness. In 18 catastrophic minutes, they'll spend the rest of their lives trying to forget. The money is gone. The vulnerability remains in slightly different forms across the entire crypto ecosystem. And the question that echoes from this billion-dollar heist isn't whether it will happen again. The question is when, and how much bigger the next one will be. Subscribe and listen to our next story below.